right, guys, it's telling me we are live and for another weekly edition of Nomberg Law Live every Tuesday. Interesting conversations with people in their areas of expertise. And if you guys don't know my guest, you're missing out. My guest today is Ryan McKeen, Connecticut lawyer, Pearl Jam fan, baseball fan, author. There's so many more descriptions. We're going to get into all of that in a minute or two. But Ryan, thank you for having some time for me today. And it's so good to see your face, and I'm looking forward to our conversation.
Thank you so much for having me, Bernard. Happy to be here.
Oh, absolutely. I've had the pleasure of hearing Ryan speak in person at conferences, virtually online. We've had lots of good communications and talks. We've got a lot of mutual interests. And I've been looking forward to this conversation for a few weeks now. And before we really get into this, today obviously is election day. So I hope you guys go out and do what I think is one of the most important things that we can do as United States citizens is go vote.
I agree, Bernard.
We get a chance to get out.
I voted I was able to fill out my ballot early and then drop it off and sort of in big part because many of the poll workers up here are older, and just anything to reduce the spread or the risk to them I felt was worth doing. So the process was really painless up here. How about you?
We're having probably, I've been voting in the same place for over 20 years, a little school in my neighborhood. And this is by far the biggest turnout that I can ever recall. And a lot of the pollsters, polling helpers, or whatever you call those volunteers, who've been there for decades, say that they've never seen lines this big. I got there 45 minutes before the polling opened, and I was at least 50th in place. My daughter's currently in line, and she is estimating she's about 250 people deep.
Wow.
So I guess that's a good thing. I don't know. I'm not a political scientist, but I like to have some optimism. So maybe we'll know something today, tomorrow, I don't know, in the upcoming days or weeks. But hopefully you guys will get out and go vote and do your part. I want to welcome a mutual buddy of ours, Mo from Huntsville, just north of me, who, Ryan, I know you know well. Mo has stopped by for a few minutes. We want to welcome you guys. And gosh, there's so many places we can go, Ryan, with our conversation, but I want to brag on you a little bit. Ryan, tell me if I've got some of these facts wrong. I believe you're the first lawyer in your family. Is that correct?
That's right.
And I know you've practiced in front of the Connecticut Supreme Court. I know you speak all over the country and has written one of the definitive books that I would show you guys called Tiger Tactics, but I've loaned it out to a buddy of mine, and I'm hoping that you've got a copy of it. Very good, Ryan. And some of the other authors on that book are also friends and just such givers. But Ryan, let's talk about your law practice for a few minutes. What type of work do you guys do? And just talk about some of the philosophies of your firm and what you guys do for the fine folks in Connecticut.
We are exclusively a personal injury firm, and we practice in the areas of personal injury, medical malpractice, and my partner does a little bit of workers' compensation. Primarily, we refer that to our friend Jim Aspel, but there are some cases where there are comp and third-party cases that make sense for us, in our opinion, to keep them in-house together. But otherwise, we refer those out. We, a lot of our philosophy is actually influenced by Don Keenan. A Southern, we went down to Atlanta to train and met actually a lot of lawyers from Alabama and across the South. So our philosophy is really to fight for our clients and advance our cases. And we named ourselves Connecticut Trial Firm because that's what we want to do. Like, we want to be in the courtroom. We don't want to be a settlement mill. Even though I say that, most of our cases do settle, but it's really in part because we have prepared them and advanced them and done the work to get the results for our clients.
I think that it's also the trend, I think, in law, at least from a personal injury, from a workers' comp standpoint in the last 20, 25 years, less and less cases are actually being tried in courts well, particularly now because of COVID. But historically, I'd say over the last decade at least, our experience are just less cases are tried in court, and more cases lend themselves to mediation or pre-suit resolution. I don't know if you see that in your practice, but we certainly have here.
Absolutely. It's consistent in our practice, and it's consistent with Connecticut judicial branch data. And I think part of that, Bernard, is that we, as lawyers and also as insurance companies, have access to so much more data, so much more ability to understand our claims. Right now, I mean, it's very common for us to have dash cam footage in a car accident, or for there to be security footage from adjacent buildings on an accident. So it's not so much of, I think when I first started practice, you interview the witness and this witness says the light was yellow. You interview another witness and the witness says the light was green. The driver says the light was red. But now you, through cameras, through light sequencing, and really through data and surveillance, essentially, I think the parties are better able to understand their risk. And when parties understand the risk, it tends to lend itself to resolution of cases.
It helps to take away a little bit of the unknown. The more that you know, the more informed decisions certainly you can make. And another fine decision maker is a mutual buddy of ours who just jumped in, Mitch Jackson in Southern California, always a big supporter of our show and of our practices and friendships. So thank you, Mitch, for stopping by to share with us for a couple of minutes. Ryan, one of the things that I've learned about you, and among other things, I know that you're such like myself, a passionate baseball fan, Pearl Jam fan, etc. But another thing that you do so well is that life-work balance that we all crave to have in our lives, a healthy balance of being able to get your work done and still do those things in life that lower stress. So I want to chat about that for a few minutes. We're getting into the colder time of the year. You're way up north. I know you already have some snow that you mentioned. What are some things for this time of the year that you look forward to doing that help with that, lowering that stress, improving that, I'm going to call it quality of life. Not that you don't have good quality of life, but it's anytime, at least for me, that I can get out and do things that help my health. I think those are all very important things.
Without question, Bernard. And I think it gets back to that old, that lecture where you talk about, filling a jar. And if you fill the jar with sand, you can't get the big rocks in. So you put the big rocks in first, and then the sand goes around the rocks. And I feel that with wellness, like wellness is a rock in my life. And like our friend Mo out there, I love the Peloton bike. I used to go to the gym all the time, and now I ride the Peloton, once, twice, sometimes 3 times a day. And really get a lot of, I get a great workout. I feel great. It's in the comfort of my bedroom. I don't have to travel anywhere. It's just a matter of clipping in my shoes. And there's a great community. I mean, I connect with, guys like Mo and a number of other lawyers across the country. And we share our rides, and I think we'll probably do some group rides soon. So that's a big part of it. Getting outdoors is just a big part of it as well. We are fortunate to live in an area with some good hiking, some great nature trails, which are always free, right down the road, which always helps. I think accessibility helps, especially when you're very busy. And we up here, we like the snowshoe, which lets us get out into the woods in the winter, which to me is just beautiful. When you've got snowpack, you're in the woods, it's quiet, there are no bugs. It's joyful just to get out. And again, most of the time, the appropriate clothing negates the cold. And there are some days where the cold is so much, it hurts your face when you walk out the door. But in any given winter, we may get 2 or 3 or 4 of those days. And the rest of the days it's cold, but you put on gloves, a hat, the right coat, right socks, boots, you're okay.
I think it's a mindset. It's a lifestyle. I know that for years I have, just like I do any of my meetings or depositions or whatever, it goes on my calendar during the week that when I'm going to step away from my work responsibilities, I'm going to go exercise. And our staff and other lawyers, they know that. I'll get back to them when I'm done, or if it's truly an emergency, they know how to find me. But I have to pause you, Ryan. You said a term that is quite foreign to most of my audience, which will be in the South, snowshoe. You're going to have to elaborate a little bit and tell us Southerners what that's about.
Well, snowshoes are essentially, how can I best describe them? When you walk on deep snow, you sink. Okay, like your boots go in, you sink. Snow will get up your snow pants, in your socks, down in your boots. Not enjoyable. What snowshoes do is they balance out your weight. So it's like I have my book here, and it's like a platform. So my Mio will be my foot. The bottom will be my snowshoe. You clamp into them, and when you walk through the woods like this, you generally walk on top of the snow because it spreads your weight out. So you're able to get out in the trails. Like they're not like skis. You're not getting any, propulsion for them, but you're just getting the ability really to walk on fresh snow. And you can walk on snow if it's hard and packed down with your boots. But if we get a foot of snow with, you 1 foot in, 1 foot in, it's not really possible. So snowshoes are popular because they let us walk on snow.
Well, Ryan, let's talk about, we're in such a unique time. We're 8 months or so into the pandemic. Nobody really has the crystal ball to know what it's going to look like the next 6 months to a year. But a lot of people, at least in my world, have settled into a routine. They figured out how to get their work done and other things. And the amount of grousing kind of goes up and down depending on the stress level. But take us into some of your mindset, maybe with your law firm, maybe with your family. How do you guys figure out from a priorities standpoint, here's what I need to be doing when I'm doing it, or maybe I don't want to do this right now because it's too stressful. Has that changed because of the pandemic, or are you pretty much continuing how you have been in the past several years, even though we're in this weird time period?
The pandemic has changed a lot in my life, in our family life, and our firm life in so many ways. I mean, generally, like last year, I'm on the plane once every 3 weeks, flying out for some reason, a conference, speaking, deposition. I'm on the go a lot. I'm always on the go in Connecticut, where I'm having lunches with people or going to courts and traveling around. And that's all been taken away. So when the pandemic hit, I know you had mentioned mindset earlier. I really, it was a hard pill to swallow, but I said, you know what, I'm going to view this as an opportunity. And it really has been. I've been able to travel less, which means I've been able to get more work done. I don't have a commute as a base level. And you know what? I've got kids who are 7 and 10. I've been able to spend a lot of time with them that I would never get to spend with them. And I've been able to do work in my firm that honestly, like I would not get to with all the running around that I was doing. So in many ways, I think, getting your head right and adopting it as an opportunity and then viewing things from there. To me, certainly I work from home most days. I'm in the office some days, but we're trying to reduce the amount of people in our office in general in accordance with state guidelines. But I go upstairs and I work. I'm in my guest room when I work, like I am now. And when I'm downstairs, I'm trying not to work. And it's that simple. But I think it's the opportunity in sort of appreciating what is. Like I've settled cases, big cases, on my driveway, throwing the football with my son, with my AirPods in. So that didn't happen before. And I think when it's all said and done, when I'm 80 years old and I look back, I'll be like, you know what? It was okay. Yes, I didn't go to Paris. Yeah, yes, you and I didn't have dinner in St. Louis and all the other things that would have happened that I look forward to happening, but it's okay.
It is okay. And there was a period of transition, at least for me and my practice and my family. I would say March into April maybe getting into May, we were starting to find a little bit of a groove. But Ryan, one of the things that I learned is I don't have to be tethered to this physical brick and mortar any longer. The practice of law, at least for me, is still largely virtually. I've had 3 court appearances since March, and I don't think that that's going to greatly increase over the upcoming, say, 6 months. I know our courthouses are open, but they're not having any jury trials. Not that we handle jury trials, ours are bench trials. But it's amazing how all facets of my practice, all the different component parts to, say, a work comp case or a Social Security disability matter, everybody's kind of figured out their own place to be able to make the system to continue. And I'm so appreciative for those things. But what has, as you mentioned a minute ago, it's become such a learning process for us all that if I want to get away for a few days, I can still practice law because of the electronics, because of the internet. And so you don't have to stay in the brick and mortar as you maybe traditionally always assumed that, at least I did, that I did have to.
And that is one of the great sort of, history. I'm a history major, and history,
Right.
Happens sometimes in strange ways. But if this pandemic happened 10 years ago, think of the impacts that it would have on work. I mean, you and I would not be doing this. It would be much harder to communicate. The internet was not what it was 10 years ago at all. Even, just in 2010, let alone 2000, and our ability to work, to move, to communicate has never been greater in human history. And I can tell you, one of the things that my wife and I have been planning during our pandemic is, we want to live in Europe some summer when the kids are a little bit older and this breaks. And that means like renting a house and living there for a period of weeks or months and learning, more about the culture. And yeah, will I be, doing some work from, an Italian villa in Tuscany? Probably, but that's okay because I have the opportunity to do that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we've taken some trips to the beach. We've got a couple of trips planned to the mountains, and they're not long trips, but it is clearly something I can build into my calendar and my schedule, because even if I have to take a deposition, it doesn't matter where I am as long as I've got some internet these days. But you're right. To put a spin on how terrible the pandemic has been for us all, it's created lots of opportunity, lots of learning, lots of growth. And I hope that those of you who are still struggling with it, still dealing with it, can figure out your path and make life, albeit different, but hopefully a little bit easier, because there's lots of things, Ryan, that I'm hoping that once we come out of all of this, that I'm going to be able to still incorporate, not just with my practice, but with my daily life, my health, my family, and everything. I haven't been inside of a gym since the pandemic began, but I have figured out how to do my gym work, if you will, on my front porch. I have a big front covered porch, overlooks the street, big enough room for my stationary bike. I can do yoga out there. I can lift weights. And you're outdoors. You're not inside of a big, a stuffy gym with a whole bunch of other people. So hopefully there are opportunities people are taking advantage of. One thing this is my question to you, is one of the things that always concerns me, or has, is, and I don't want to appear everything's been rosy, because it certainly hasn't. I'm just in a good place now with everything, is a lot of people are still struggling, and struggling mightily, and they can't figure out how to get past whatever it is. So I try to make myself as available as I can without being pushy to my friends, my neighbors, my colleagues. If you just need somebody to chat with, I'm here. No judgments. I'm not professionally trained, but I'll certainly listen. So I didn't know if those things in your community have shown themselves to you or your family, your colleagues, and are you seeing something similar that I am?
Yeah, I'm seeing people connect. I know an attorney friend of mine started a COVID support group for
Very good.
lawyers who
Mhm.
are dealing with this. I mean, for me, I think I haven't done anything like that, but a lot of what I've done and what's gone on is just picking up the phone and just saying like, "How's it going? How you doing?" Especially, I think earlier in the pandemic. I think right now, I think I think everybody's a little bit more settled in, or at least people that I know. But just picking up the phone on a walk and saying like, "Hey, how's it going? How's life?" And making that connection is still really possible.
It's I live in the largest populated county in the state, Birmingham, Jefferson County. Now, granted, our population is less than 5 million people. We have lots of rural areas of our state. We have lots and lots of small towns, like under 15,000, lots of small towns. And so the mindset of people I've come across in my town, my city, is different than the mindset of a lot of other places around the state. And I'll tell you, it really creates a little bit of discourse, if you will, a little bit of not confusion, but the approaches are just different. Everybody's approaching the pandemic and dealing with the virus differently because people have been impacted differently. It may be that one community has 0 cases and no deaths, et cetera. Another one may have been hit very, very hard. But what it's teaching me, and I'm coming to a question, I promise. What it's teaching me is I have to be mindful of what all people, regardless of where you're from or how you're dealing with it, I have to be mindful of how you personally, the people I'm communicating with, are dealing with it, because it might be different from the way I'm dealing with it. And that sometimes creates a little bit of not friction, but miscommunication at times. And I don't know if you've had that experience.
Yeah, I think, I mean, I think what has happened when we look back, I think in somehow in February, between February and May of 2020, it really, we had about 10 years worth of change that occurred in that very condensed period of time. It became 2030 in terms of how practice was impacted. And that is very hard. That was a hard, we are tech forward. And it was an adjustment for us in a big way. And for other lawyers in our community who aren't as tech forward, it was even more of an adjustment. And I think, I think one of my mentors in college, gave me the book. This is probably back in like 1999, Who Moved My Cheese?
Right.
And I think it was one of like a great book that I read at the right time, because that cheese is always moving, but this spring it like went way far away.
Yeah.
Change is hard. Change is really, really hard. And
It
a
is.
lot of players in my community are struggling, and some of it's just the business reality of you have different practice areas. Real estate up here has done really well, but some of the PI firms, we don't have trials, and our cases tend to resolve around trials. So that can be an issue, and other folks, other issues in various practice areas. So my criminal defense friends have been really hit because courts up here are barely, they're moving a little bit, but they're not what they were in February for sure.
Yeah, no, you hit the nail on the head, and it's our firm has been computer forward. I think may have been the term that you, or tech forward, for a number of years. That combined with the type of work that we do, which is not jury driven, has allowed us to, and I'm not going to say seamless by any means, but it's allowed us to continually operate as we have in the past. The only difference has been no in-person court trials with judges. My last one, I had 2 in February and haven't had one since, but we've still been able to represent our clients and still been able to resolve cases. But even when I go from, or when I will go from the courthouse in the largest county here in town to one of the smaller counties where we do a lot of work, I'm sure it's going to be a vastly different experience when dealing with protocol, if you will, safety protocol. But anyway, you and I can talk about the practice of law for days on end, but we don't want to lose our audience. So let's kind of shift gears for a few minutes. One of the things, Ryan, that I really kind of dove into big time was figuring out when I had a lot of downtime, because partly because I've been practicing as long as I have, and partly because I've just become more efficient at my work. And I don't want a lot of people to hear this. I don't stay at the office on those days that I come in. I don't stay nearly as long as I used to. I get my work done and I go home. Probably because I know I can continue working at home when I feel the need. But I'm filling my hours with entertainment the best that I can. And I know where you know where I'm going with this is how many Pearl Jam concerts have you put on and just been in the background? Because I can tell you, for me, they are always in the background of my life. It doesn't matter what I'm doing, I've got something on, and I just love that there's so much volume of their work that you can enjoy. And it doesn't have to be Pearl Jam; it could be any other band, of course.
Well, for me, it is Pearl Jam, and I often have on the Sirius XM Pearl Jam channel.
Yep.
So I just listen to that, and it does my work for me of picking all sorts of concerts, all sorts of songs, and I love that channel a lot. And yesterday they released the MTV Unplugged, and it sounds amazing. So I spent most of my day just listening to those 7 songs on repeat. And really loved it. I haven't had the chance to watch. I know they did the release of the Philadelphia concert, and I haven't had the chance to watch that or watch their shows on video. But I love listening to them.
Well, 2 very important follow-up questions to that. One, does your family share your passion for their music?
My wife tolerates Pearl Jam. Tolerates. Um, and I think my kids are 7 and 10. I they know that Dad loves Pearl Jam. I don't know where exactly they fall. I don't think Eddie Vedder is Taylor Swift to my daughter, but
Not
it's
yet,
okay.
not yet. Give her time. Give her time. But the other follow-up question comment is, regardless of who the musician or the entertainer or actor or whoever it is, I feel like that having a passion like that, music that you so enjoy, I think is so very important to our health, to our mental, spiritual, physical health. Because if you find something that brings you that joy and you can always come back to it, I just think it does such wonders. And no, I don't know the science. I don't know the medicine part of any of this or the chemicals released. I just know how it makes me feel. And if I'm feeling down, I know certain music of theirs I can put on, or if I'm really pumped up about something, it just is something I know is always going to be there for me. And for that, I'm eternally grateful to Eddie and the boys for what they put out.
And for me, I think that there's a lot of lessons that I've taken from Pearl Jam and incorporated in my practice, in the sense that I've been a fan of theirs since 1992. It's like 28 years, I guess, at this point. And one of the things I've always felt with them, and they've done, is they've taken care of their fans. They set aside tickets when they were the biggest band in the world to their 10 club, and me as a 17-year-old was able to see them in Hartford because I had 10 club tickets, not because I was priced out by and I actually think they priced their show at like $10 or $20. It was ridiculously inexpensive at the time, but I always feel like they've given so much to their fans. Every time I've seen them, I've seen other artists and sometimes they're checked out. And every time I've seen Pearl Jam, I felt like they are giving everything they have. I think that they are just good to their fans. And there's so many lessons, I think, in being a lawyer in that, where you give to your clients and you treat them with respect, and you do the little things that over time it results in, a really wonderful, rewarding career in practice.
It does. And Eddie was interviewed by Howard Stern yesterday, and he talks about those very issues, about the fight with Ticketmaster, about why keeping the customers, the fans, in the foremost in their minds when they're doing their shows or whatever else that they do. I think for years they pushed get out and vote measures. and things like that. But you and I can talk about Pearl Jam for hours. There's so many other topics, but guys, I'm talking with Ryan McKeen, trial lawyer in Connecticut, a multifaceted, very interesting, all kind of wonderful things for us to talk about. But as we get close toward the end of our conversation, Ryan, I want to pivot yet again about looking into the future. And let's fast forward, whether it's a month or a year or however long it's going to take until the world can get back out and resume what I'll call some sense of normalcy. We have a vaccine, and Dr. Fauci and whoever else is in charge at the time of educating us has given us the all clear. One of the things I fear is people just going haywire because they've been pent up for so long. And here's what I want to ask you is, one, have you thought about what that looks like into the future? And maybe this is an impossible question to really answer, is what do you think, what kind of an approach will you and your family take toward that? Because it's so foreign a concept, at least for me right now, until I'm convinced that whatever vaccines are out there are safe and we're able to resume day-to-day normal activities. What does that look like in the future for you?
I think that there's, I mean, yes, once we get through the safety and the immunity, and once the virus numbers start going down and all of those things, let's push through that. I mean, I think that there's, an elasticity to life and things. I mean, it's like, things are like a rubber band. They go one way and then they come back, and they go and they come back. And I think that, life probably looks a lot like it did in 2019, and whether that's 2021, 2022, I think things look, very similar to what it looked like. And I think, but I think things are different. I do hope that in the practice of law, some of these changes where we have remote hearings, remote depositions, that these become much more normative because it's so efficient, as opposed to having to drive around all over the place, always worried that you're not going to get a parking space or get stuck in traffic. And I hope that does continue. But I think life, we'll be at a Pearl Jam concert. It'll feel a lot like 2019.
Well, I certainly agree with your sentiments and hope that we get there. But you're so right. My brother had a hearing recently in the southern part of the state, which is normally, it's a 5-minute hearing, but an 8-hour driving day. And he doesn't get paid any more to attend the 5-minute hearing in person than he would via Zoom. Thankfully, that court had the hearing on Zoom. He didn't even have to leave his house. But ordinarily, that is a long, almost a waste of a day. So those are the type of modern, I guess I'll call them conveniences, but they've always, frankly, they've been there for years. Our court system was not pressed into utilizing them. So you would have to drive all over the state. And I'm sure you'd appreciate that too. I don't know how far your furthest drive is within your state, but ours is about 4.5 hours in one direction.
Yeah, we are, for us, it's about, it can be 4.5 hours once we get into New York City traffic.
Oh, yeah.
On a clear day, it should be about 90 minutes, but
yeah.
that doesn't happen in Southern Connecticut. So it could be 4 hours. Yep.
Well, Ryan, I certainly hope that sooner rather than later, we're able to meet up again in St. Louis or wherever it is that the conference for Max Law or Pearl Jam is going to be. And I just noticed that this was the month I was supposed to be in Nashville at a Pearl Jam concert, but of course that's been continued for till this time next year. So hopefully we'll all be able to enjoy those things in life again once we get back into the clear of things. But I want to thank you for spending some time with us this afternoon or this morning.
Thank you for having me, Bernard.
Absolutely. And guys, Ryan McKeen, I'm going to put a link to his website. So if you want to reach out to him, if you have Connecticut related law questions, concerns, please reach out to his firm. They do such a wonderful job of customer service and communication. But guys, as I say all the time, please continue to be safe, wear a mask. If not for yourself, wear it for fellow mankind. And with today being the election day, please go out and do your civic duty and go vote. Hope you guys have a great rest of your week. Take care.